Hi, I'm John Tickles, and welcome to Remote RPGs. Well, I did it. 2 years and 30 episodes. I am a legend in my own mind. We've had some good times, well, mostly bad, but some good times, and now it's time to talk about one of the most criminally underrated RPG trilogies of all time. The Blazer trilogy. That being Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, and Terranigma. These are 3 fantastic Super Nintendo RPGs that have not gotten the love they deserve, especially the first and third. Illusion of Gaia has gotten way more attention in reviews lately, but it'll still get a review because it's awesome and whatever, I do what I want. For now, let's just jump right into the game that sounds like an amazing jazz band, Soul Blazer.
Please fasten your seatbelts as the ride may get funky.
Developed by Quintet, Soul Blazer was a title for the Super Nintendo that sold only 70,000 copies in North America, and a game that you never hear anyone talk about while discussing classic SNES titles. Following a more Zelda-esque style, it's probably the least good of the Blazer trilogy. It's also not too heavy on story compared to the other titles in the series. In this fantasy world, the Master sends one of his heavenly divine companions in the form of a human warrior to the Frail Empire. Wait, really? The Frail Empire? Or Free Eel? It sounds frail. Might as well call it the Easy to Knock Over Empire, or the We Didn't Get Enough Funding Empire, where the evil spirit Death Toll, now that's a good name, has destroyed all the villages and incarnated all the souls of all the living creatures into monster lairs, leaving the world empty. The warrior must defeat the monsters and liberate the inhabitants from their lairs, gradually repopulating the kingdom. That's the premise of the game, and the story doesn't develop much further than, look, bad guys, go get him, go! Good boy, here's your shiny. Except it does throw in a couple of cool twists and a cute little love story at the end. It's really nothing to write home about, but that won't stop me. Dear Grandma, I've been playing Soul Blazer. The story's been pretty tame apart from a couple of twists. It's nothing like the sequels. I hope everything is good with you too. Love, John. P.S. Stop sending me your shitty knitted sweaters, you... But who the hell plays a game called Soul Blazer for the story? That's like playing a game called Firefight Shootout Explosion Stravaganza and expecting Shakespearean storytelling. It's just not happening. There really aren't that many characters either, with the only ones coming to mind being Dr. Leo and his daughter Lisa. Dr. Leo is a kind of aloof professor, Doc Brownish guy, if I remember correctly. And he has to fight between his profession and his role as a father. There's also his daughter, who just wants her dick. Yeah, we didn't get a complicated character set here. That's it. I usually harp on RPGs for a lack of a solid story, but I guess what you get here is decent.
Look, what do you want from me? That's what happened! Get out of here already!
In Soul Blazer, you take the top-down Zelda perspective, running across the world swiping at baddies to take their souls! You navigate across 6 villages, with the goal being to liberate each area from Death Toll's influence. And it's the same concept as another Quintet contemporary title, ActRaiser. The main gimmick of Soul Blazer is the actual souls that you have to recover. See, when you start out at a village, it looks like the number of people who watch these reviews, but through a slow process, the town gradually gets replenished, with inhabitants and their souls returning there. How do you return those souls? Well, you have to inspect the nearby dungeons, and it's here that you get into the meat and potatoes of Soul Blazer, the hack and slash RPG glory. You cut down your enemies, Zelda style, but your goal is to kill enemies in order to return souls back to town. See, when you step on these green glowy thingamajigs, you can use it to progress the dungeon and to return souls back to the village. One person or animal or group or house at a time usually. You can then go back to town and interact with that saved soul or object, and you need to work back and forth between dungeons and towns to get things done a lot of the time. I gotta say that's a really satisfying feeling to watch the town slowly fill up with life again. You really feel like you're doing some good. Yes, even somebody with that haircut can bring joy. Thus, the main concept feels fresh and fun, even if there isn't a whole lot to it. It's the thought that counts. To get more into detail when working between towns in a dungeon, there's a lot of little puzzles in the game, mostly with trying to figure out every monster layer to defeat and souls to save. Moving in between the town and dungeons can get kind of tedious, but thankfully there's a lot of warp areas and the areas themselves aren't too big. And it can be one of those where the hell do I go kind of games, so I would have a walkthrough nearby just in case. But as long as you hit up every soul and talk to everybody, you shouldn't have too much of a problem. The only big issue came from having to give certain people certain items, or at the end of the game where you have to find a certain group of items that you had no idea how to find. Other than that, the puzzles are pretty simple and fun. The actual hacking and slashing is what I'd like to focus on. There are 6 worlds to go through, and each are very distinct in terms of theming and design. You can kill enemies to gain experience, and once you get enough, you level up. A revolutionary concept, I know. You may want to take a second to let that sink in. Also, there's armor and weapon power-ups that you have to utilize, but there was never much more strategy than pick the newest armor to battle with once in a while, or if you're in the water level, use this armor, or if you're in the fire level, use this armor, I don't know. There were some cool side items to utilize though, like the bracelets for power-ups and such. And there's a nice variety of enemies to fight as well, that you get to take down with your trusty blade. Although a lot of the time you'll be using the basic slash, you also get this kind of jousting move that you can use with the R button. I rarely used it, but it did come in handy sometimes if you know what to do with it. You can also use this technique to pull items towards you, like in the sequel. Yeah, things are always attracted to my large cylindrical object. For some reason, you seem to be able to hit a lot more when facing to the right than when facing down. And the hit detection isn't quite Zelda clean, but it's just so satisfying and simple that you can't help but enjoy it. You also get a nice assortment of magic thanks to that silly glowy light navi thingamajig that follows you around and stuff. You can use it to get hard to reach enemies or to just cause general chaos. And it's a nice mix-up from the slash 'em up gameplay that is the soul of the game. LOL! In terms of difficulty, the game strikes a good balance, with enemies requiring a little strategy, but the game never really requires you to rack your brain in combat, which is fine for a little action RPG title like this. Leveling up is actually fun in a way. I never had to power level, it never felt like a chore, and that's always nice. However, the boss fights vary greatly in difficulty, which is another theme of this series, as you'll either breeze through a boss or get your sorry ass handed to you. Which seems to be a motif across every game in this series, other than a focus on Death and Rebirth and dogs named Turbo. Also, it's a very quick game. I can't see it taking more than 10 to 15 hours, I guess, maybe even less. I beat it in about a week. It may be considered too short if you use a walkthrough, but I'd rather have quality over quantity, and that's what you get. The graphics in the game are just okay. Come on, this is really early Super Nintendo. I'm pretty sure it was 1991. I wasn't really blown away by the visual style at any point, but I did like the variety of areas you visit, especially that underwater level, which was actually really good, Parrish thought. There was a cool lab, and the snowy mountains were really memorable. Visually, the game does stick with you, and it has great colors and such, although it never really pushed the system and the hardware. The character models are especially simplistic. The music in the game was pretty good though. I've heard people complain about it, but some of these songs are really catchy, although repetitive. However, there's one song that absolutely steals the show, or the game, and that is A Night Without Lovers. It is such a great song, one of the best I've heard on the system. Other than that though, the music is still pretty catchy, with some songs that are noticeably better than others, but everything's still solid. In conclusion, Soul Blazer is a really simple, to-the-point action RPG that set the standard for a great series, yes, but it's a fantastic game in its own right. The story shows some sparks and doesn't overstay its welcome. The gameplay is somewhat unique and a lot of fun. The graphics are fine and the music is pretty good. If you're looking for a quick little action RPG fix, then look no further. If you've played Illusion of Gaia and or Terranigma, then give this one a shot as well if you haven't yet, because it's well worth your time. However, it does demand $30+ on eBay, cartridge only, and I'm not sure if it's worth it considering it's such a short game. This is one that they really ought to put on the Virtual Console because it's a shame it was so overlooked. If nothing else, one of you out there better start a sports team, a band, an interpretive dance group, whatever. Just something called Soul Blazer. Do not disappoint me. Do not disappoint me. That's it for now. So, until we tackle Illusion of Gaia, I'm John Tickles. Thanks for 2 years, and I look forward to our next random encounter.
I don't know. What if they're lying? We should still protect the villagers. Oh, don't worry. I took care of that. You can't get touched if you're on fire.